Saul was no longer God's chosen king for Israel. However, it would be a while before a new king could be crowned and take his place. First, Samuel had to find the new king. God led him to a house of Jesse, where he found many who looked like good kingly men. But God didn't take any of them. He didn't look at the outward appearance. He was looking inside for someone who had a heart to follow him. After looking at all Jesse's sons, Samuel asked if there were any more. Then Jesse sent someone to get his youngest son, David, who was watching the sheep. God told Samuel this boy would be king, and Samuel didn't question it, but anointed him to symbolize him as God's choice. Despite being called by God to be king, David's life didn't change much. He continued to watch his father's sheep and even fought off a bear and a lion to protect the sheep. David was faithful to the work he had in front of him. He waited patiently on the Lord for his timing. A day came when the Philistines came to fight, and Saul brought his army to face them. There was a valley between them, and instead of fighting, the Philistines offered a challenge. If one man from the army of Israel could defeat their strongest warrior, they would surrender. But if their warrior could defeat whoever they sent, then Israel would surrender. It may have sounded like a good idea. Saul was a strong man and had lots of battle experience. However, the warrior from the Philistines was a giant about 9 feet high. If he were standing next to you in your house, his head would be in the ceiling. No one wanted to fight a giant covered in armor and brandishing a large sword and spear. Jesse was worried because his oldest children were in the army, so he sent David to check on them and bring them food. When David arrived, he heard the Philistine challenge, and he accepted it. God helped David when he was only protecting sheep. Now David trusted God to help him protect Israel. Saul was worried about the idea of David going to face a giant, especially because he had not been in battle and he was just a shepherd, but he let David fight the giant. David could have had the best armor and sword, but it's dangerous to go into battle with weapons you have never practiced with. Instead, he faced the giant with the tools he knew and used, the sling and the stone. The giant saw David coming and started marching toward him with thundering footsteps. But David didn't back away. He ran at the giant, swinging his sling around, and when he let go, the stone struck the giant in the forehead, the one place his helmet didn't cover, and the giant fell to the ground. God was with David and helped him overcome this giant. David trusted God. He knew that God helped him in the small jobs, protecting the sheep. So God would help him when facing something bigger. We can know God is with us by how he helps us through the small things that worry us. And so when something big comes, we can trust God to be there for us. We can talk to God at any time, tell him of our burden, and trust him to help us through it.